Yeah, if there's only one thing that's important in the 21st century, I mean, if there's only one thing that we have to do, then what is it? We have to do one single thing in the 21st century. What is it? We have to understand the human mind, how we attach to concepts, how we make concepts, how we believe in them, or how we attach to the idea that is represented by language. The whole world is marinated in ideological problems. You know, the whole world, humanity is in a swimming pool of ideological conflicts and terrorism and war simply because of attachment to ideas. There's only one thing that we have to understand, and that is the human program. We have to understand ourselves. We have to understand why we are as we are. And why is it so that we are the way that we are? Because of the human program. And the human program is our mind, the way that the mind works. And why is the mind the way that it is? Well, because of the brain, because of all the neurological and electromagnetic, and because of all the chemistry and all the physics, the particle physics and chemistry, which is the same thing. Chemistry is, after all, physics, particle physics, too. So everything is about the brain, but it doesn't matter what the brain is, because we don't need to understand that. What we need to understand is how the mind works. Why do we attach to ideas? What is the process of the mind, of the human program? It's 3 steps. Perception, conception, and attaching to concepts. Perception, all right, I perceive something. I can see you, you know, I can see something in this world. I have perception, I can see something. Then I conceive. I start to make a conception about what I perceive, right? So I go from perception to conception. That is the natural way of the mind. And then, at the end, I make an idea, a thought, and I attach to that, and then I start to act. Then I start to walk around, or I kill people, or I blow myself up in a suicide bombing attack, or whatever. You know, the world is full of ideological conflicts and terrorism because we attach to ideas. And we don't understand, and we don't accept that language is just a language. Language is a libretto, you know. It's an instrument for us to communicate. But language is not the world. Language is an instrument with which we can express our experience with the world, our conception of the world. We can use it in our way to organize things and ourselves and understand ourselves. I mean, language is a tool that a scientist uses in his laboratory, and the human being is the scientist, and the laboratory is the life of the human being. So we need to understand that. Why is it that I believe in this God that I'm able to kill for? I want to kill someone because I believe in something, right? Why is that so? Well, it's because I perceive, conceive, and attach. I perceive some kind of a scripture, and I conceive a conception about this idea, and then I attach to it, and I integrate it into my belief system. And that's the whole process. That is the human program. The human program has 3 steps: perception, conception, and attaching to concepts. And then, of course, the rest is action. The rest is how we act. The rest is how we behave. We can explain the psychological situation of the human being in detail, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is to understand, why is it that we attach to concepts? Well, because that's the way the mind works. That's how the mind works. So we have to understand the mind as a phenomenon in itself. The mind is a phenomenon in itself. within which we live our lives. We act and we communicate within this mind. And the work, the different faculties and abilities of the mind is perception, conception, and attaching to concepts, you know. Or that is the three actions that we perform within the domain of the mind, which is given to us through the consciousness that is produced by the brain. So we just have to understand these three steps, why we are as we are, why we go from perception to conception to attaching to concepts. We have to understand this if we want to free ourselves from the mental circus of the human being and also from terrorism and ideological conflicts. We have to see that the human being and what we believe is not important. It's just a temporary piece of paper. It's not really substantial, and tomorrow we will believe another thing. It's just a temporary phenomenon that we attach to. We live within the mind, we are not the mind itself. The human being is not the mind, but we live within the mind, and the mind is the domain within which we communicate and constitute our life as communicators and as actors. So, my idea is simply this, that in this century and right now, today and tomorrow, we just have to start to understand the human program. Why are we the way that we are? Because of the way the mind works. We go from perception to conception to attaching to concepts. And we have to distance ourselves from this process. We have to see it for what it really is, if we don't want to become insane and warriors of concepts and of words, which the whole world is right now. On the most serious level, you have all kinds of religious extremism and murder and conflicts, and on another level you have a blind, more or less capitalist system, or a system of production that is founded in the same cycle of perception, conception, and attaching to concepts. So what we need is to see the process for what it really is and liberate ourselves from it, free ourselves from the bondage of this process, see it for what it is, and live as people who can see themselves, that we are a humanity, that I am a human being that understands myself. I understand the way that I am, and I understand why I am that I am. I understand why it is that I have to be the way that I am, simply because of the human program, simply because the way the mind works. So we have to distance ourselves and see ourselves in the mirror before we commit acts that are really not appropriate, and that which will not help us to make a beautiful and clever world, you know, full of science that we need, full of culture that we need, full of wisdom and knowledge that we need. So we need knowledge about knowledge, and knowledge about knowledge means knowledge about how we produce knowledge, and knowledge about how we produce knowledge means knowledge of ourselves. It means knowledge about the human program. It means knowledge about how we go from perception to conception to attaching to the product of the idea that we make ourselves in relationship and in cooperation with language. Mind and language, it's only that. Mind and language and concepts, and we have to be careful with this process if we want to improve global world society, which we simply just have to do. We have to improve global world society, and we have to start now. Really.